our personal development journey doesn't go too far without looking at our own limitations, fears, scarcities, our own BS. This is why podcasts, reading books, they can help a little bit, but not that much. I started on this path with ayahuasca more than 8 years ago. I got an ayahuasca retreat tomorrow. So before I go, I'm making a bunch of ayahuasca content because it just feels right. Ayahuasca serves as a mirror to show you what's inside you. On the other hand, it serves as a mirror to show you what you're not. A lot of times in life, we try to force things, to make things a certain way, to be a certain way, and we can deny what our heart says. Listen to our brain, deny what our true nature is. What's great about ayahuasca is it can really straighten you out. When I first started working with the medicine, shortly thereafter, I was kind of living in two worlds. I'm down here in Medellin, Colombia. I have been for almost 9 years. But I would do this thing where I would go party, women, drugs, alcohol one weekend, and then ayahuasca ceremony the next weekend. That stuff in me around sex wasn't really what I wanted, so I thought. I thought it was. For me, after many ceremonies, a couple years later, after living this kind of double life, back and forth, I saw something inside myself that I'd never seen. And it took me, gotta think, about almost 2.5 years to actually want to see it. And I'll tell you the story. I wasn't planning on telling this part of the story, but here we go. I started ayahuasca in August of 2017. And it was about Halloween weekend, from what I remember, of 2019. So 2 years or so. And I'll never forget the ayahuasca. After I'm sitting there for an hour, it's like, this is gonna be hard. I was like, all right. It's never said that before in 30 ceremonies or whatever at that point. And then it asked the next question. It was like, are you sure you're ready? And I remember thinking, no, but I came here. I want to learn. I want to grow. I want to heal. I want to get stronger. So yeah, I guess I'm ready. Ready enough. And it showed me something I'll never forget. It almost was like opening a book. And it showed me being in kindergarten, getting molested by a Catholic priest, like pretty early on in kindergarten. And I took that book and I closed it. I did not want to see that. I didn't know back then that my promiscuity was more connected to a wound than I could have possibly imagined. I thought, I like women, I like Latin women, I'm in Colombia, you know, maybe this is kind of sloppy, but it is what it is. I'm exploring myself, drugs, prostitutes, sex clubs, three-ways, different things. So came back a few months later. A retreat down here where we go, it's 4 ceremonies. So first ceremony, normal. Second ceremony, normal. Third ceremony, normal. Fourth ceremony, it's like, hey, remember that thing we showed you a few months ago? What happened to you as a kid? I was like, that never happened. It was so deeply buried in me, in my psyche, that I couldn't even consider that it was possible. It was that foreign to me, even though in fact it did happen. More on that in a minute. And I kept going through this process for, when was it? It would have been until December of 2021, so like another 2 years at that point. Same thing each retreat I went to. I have 3 normal ceremonies. One would bring this up and it would just say, hey, we're not trying to test you, we're not trying to mess with you. Like, this has impacted your life, you gotta take care of this. Like, no. Excuse me. Go to another ceremony, different shaman, completely different lineage, still in Colombia. These 2 guys are not connected at all. Same thing happens. Except this guy's medicine, I have found, even though it's not my favorite, it's one of my favorites, it tends to just kind of punch through and get through areas that are stuck. where we don't want to see things, where we haven't overcome something. It's going to get it. It's like the velvet hammer. And I'll never forget, it was like coaching me. It reminded me of like Tony Robbins talking to me. And it was asking me all these questions. And it kept taking the pressure off. It kept saying, I know you weren't molested, but if you were, da-da-da-da-da. I know this didn't happen, but if it did, how would this affect your relationships? I know this didn't happen, but if it did, how would this affect your sex life? I know it didn't happen. And after that ceremony, I was starting to go, did that happen? Now, some of you might think I'm crazy. I'm some dude on YouTube taking hallucinogens in the jungle of Colombia. Not quite, but you're entitled to your opinion. But this kept coming up over and over and over. And I felt like shit for a month after that because I was leaning towards maybe this happened. I hadn't recalled that it didn't stick. I wasn't open to it yet. I was still very scared. So I decided a few months later to go to another retreat at the original place, the place I mainly work at, the place I'll be going to in less than 24 hours. And I go and I just basically say, hey, I'm open. This might have happened. I don't know if it did. You brought it up a dozen times. Went to some other ayahuasca. It brought it up in a different way. If this happened, I want to know and I want to confront it. I want to heal this, fix this, cure this, whatever the hell I have to do. So that's what happened. It came up. And it wasn't like I relived it at all, but I remembered most everything. I remember what it was about. I remember the energy I felt from the priest. I remember all this different stuff. I remember it was more about like domination than sex. And I processed it over the next few days. And I'll never forget it. It said something like, you're not gonna like this. I'm like, that's a great way to start. It's like, do you really wanna let this go? I'm like, yeah. And I tried to negotiate with the ayahuasca, which does not work. Like, hey, you have this one day, do all these healings, let's get this over with. And I imagine the best way to describe it, I feel like the ayahuasca is kind of looking at me like, all right, this dude thinks he's in control or he knows, like whatever. And I had to forgive him. I didn't want to in the moment, I did. Became a process after that. And there was layers in different ceremonies, a lot in breath work, that had to peel off of that experience. It took about 18 months. A lot of my previous ceremonies had to do with sex. Meaning, think of sex as like a healing force or also like a toxin. So if it's a toxin or toxic food, if you're going to a fast or an ayahuasca retreat and you're eating a bunch of shit, you have to pay the consequences of that. That stuff has to go out. So I had before, as I do this stuff, the sex clubs, the prostitutes, I felt like I had to undo all the stuff I did the week before, the month before. And that was a pretty consistent theme. After this moment though, when I was willing to face it, I was willing to look inside, something palpable shifted inside of me. I didn't have the same attraction, which was strange, to those environments. I hadn't been with a prostitute in years at that point, and over the healing and over the time after that, I'd not done that. It just, this unhealthiness in me just left. There was 18 months of peeling back layers of that, so it wasn't just all at once. The way I would describe it in life, if we have things that are in our way, we can have these enormous boulders where we can't walk past something. Then we can have rocks, then we can have like sand and little pebbles. And that definitely removed a enormous boulder or two, or however many it was that night. Why I bring this up is because there's oftentimes stuff inside of us that we don't want to face. Listening to podcasts, reading books are so minimal they can be like mental masturbation for personal development. You don't get that much from it. with ayahuasca, with a men's group, with a therapist, with a coach, with something where you actually, when done with love, you have to confront yourself. You have to look at things. That's when real transformation begins. Real healing begins, because it's too easy otherwise to hide. Why I love ayahuasca, why I'm going back tomorrow, is because I'll face new things that I know one thing I'll be facing or working through that came up in my life in the last 10 days. But there's other things that I have no idea. And I found on that personal development journey, if we stay in our comfort zone, in a safe place of just reading books, and no one can bullshit us better than we can, so it's reading the book and filling out the questions, and not much happens. Real change happens when you do something uncomfortable. It doesn't have to be hard, but it will be uncomfortable. Not here to share how you should be addicted to suffering, even though for some people that's popular. But something where you actually have to look at yourself, question why you do what you do, what's underneath that, your own fears, your own limitations. Do I think everyone was molested as a kid? No. It's more common than you think. Is that what you're gonna have at ayahuasca? Probably not, even though it's possible. But there's things inside of us, decisions we've made, experiences we've had at younger ages, or even recently, where they've kinked us off from the truth of who we really are. Do something to challenge yourself. If it calls to you, pick up the phone, pick up the call for ayahuasca, and do something to discover what's inside of you, to heal that, to transform that into you may have something happen in your life. It's like a gold bar, but it's covered in dog shit wrapping paper. When you take that wrapping paper off, it's worth it.